Hello and welcome. I'm Silvia Pavoni, economics editor of The Banker, and I am in Buenos Aires for the G20 meeting of the Institute of International Finance. I'm now talking to Claudio Irigoyen, who is the head of Latam economics, FX and fixed income strategy at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Claudio, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
We've just concluded a very interesting panel discussion on politics and policy in Latin America. We asked a question to the audience on whether they feel that populism may be coming back this year. This is an important election year for the region, and perhaps out of all the panelists, you were the ones that consider this a bigger threat.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The baseline scenario is that probably populism is not going to come back that soon, but it's still on the rise in terms of voting intention. So you can go country by country and still see that the left has a lot to say. And we think that this is more the outcome of a global phenomena, because you have also populism on the rise in Europe, expressed through different channels, probably anti-migration, anti-minorities moves, but in the case of Latin America has been traditionally expressed with the left-wing parties. So we think it's still a threat, not a baseline. And I think it would be a mistake to be complacent about the end of populism in Latin America.
What would it mean for the region? So the total number of countries which are going to go through a leadership change potentially is 7. This includes even Venezuela. The biggest, obviously, economies, Mexico and Brazil, are also going through elections. Mexico going to the polls in July, Brazil in October. The front runner in Mexico is López Obrador, known as AMLO by the initials of his name, and obviously is on the left side of the political spectrum, and he's even been talking about potentially reversing or changing in some way the reforms that the country introduced in the energy sector. So how concerned are you that this might materialize?
Well, I think he has strong chances of winning. Obviously, the elections in Mexico, remember that we don't have second round in Mexico, so the election will be defined in the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's going to be very important whether Peña Nieto, the president of Mexico, can support Meade, the candidate of the PRI. There is a strong vote anti-PRI, not so much in favor of AMLO, but anti-PRI, and AMLO is capturing those votes. Corruption is the main issue, the main topic in this election in Mexico, and AMLO is being perceived as someone honest that might have some lefty agenda, but way more moderate than what he used to express in previous elections when he was a candidate.
So he has a real chance, and
Absolutely.
do you think that he might follow through these threats? Or threats, or these promises for the ones who think it's a good idea?
I think the one important development to separate that we didn't discuss in the panel is that probably AMLO learned to win an election, and he is being more moderate because he's leading the polls, and the optimal thing to do when you're leading the polls is to probably be quiet. But that doesn't mean that is the true agenda that he wants to implement. So the risk is that he goes back to his traditional agenda of more redistribution, probably altering the pace of the execution of the reforms. I mean, he's not going to change the reforms. He's not going to have majority in Congress, so he's not going to control the Congress. But I think one development that actually we didn't discuss it in the panel that will be used for a lefty candidate if they make it to power. They are not going to have control of the Congress, neither in Colombia nor in Mexico. So they will probably use referendums to move population. So they will say, okay, population wants us to do this. Congress cannot stop us.
Which can be quite dangerous as well in terms of the outcome. Now, quickly on Brazil.
Yes.
Corruption has been also a main driver throughout the campaign. The candidates haven't, obviously it's too early to know exactly which candidates will put themselves forward, but we have Jair Bolsonaro on the far right of the political spectrum, gaining some kind of popularity. And he's someone who is saying that China really is not welcome to have such a strong presence in key industries, and he rather deal with the US. On the other side, we have Lula, who still might be able and willing to run, perhaps, yes. And he still is quite popular. Lula, the former president, who is under investigations and is fighting allegations of corruptions. So how concerned are you about Brazil?
Well, we're not going to learn about whether Lula will run or not until August. So until then, uncertainty remains, and his strategy will be to continue doing campaign, even from jail, and to try to pressure the electoral court that population wants him to be the candidate, and the electoral court has no right to impede that. Assuming that he's not running, the center-right has a strong chance. Almin has a strong chance, but
Almin is the centrist candidate and the ones that the markets would really like to see through, the current governor of the state of Sao Paulo.
That is correct. So the key in Brazil is the second round, because all the candidates, even Almin, has very strong rejection rate. So anything can happen in the second round. So we want to learn probably. It's too early to tell. Again, Brazil is towards the end of the year. Probably we want to have a lot of developments within the next 3 months. But with the information we have today, where the voting intention is still too fragmented, Almin probably might be able to capture the center. And at the time of the election, probably we want to learn that Lula is not running, and Ciro Gomes, which is the candidate that might take the votes from the left, will not be strong enough to deal with Almin. But everything can happen. Again, the baseline is that the center-right will do well, but it's still way open.
Right, so lots of excitement coming out of Latin America this year.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Claudio.
Thank you for having me.